Om Ajnanatimarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. All right, good morning, everybody. We've covered some distance. We've initially, in the first day, which seems like it was almost a long time ago, but it's basically a week ago, we defined yoga as a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing their own true nature. We've spoken a bit about the true nature of the self, and we've spoken a bit about the mind. And with this information, we're beginning to fill out a picture of what we could call the predicament of the soul or the predicament of the self. You could say the bondage, the trap, in a sense, that we're all in, that the yogis are identifying for us, and the trap that yoga has the potential to help us free ourselves of or to transcend. And so to kind of put it in a nutshell, we've been told that we're a spark of spiritual energy, that by nature is eternal, by nature is conscious and full of knowledge, and by nature is blissful. And we went deeper into saying that bliss is explained by the bhakti yogis as being prema or divine love. But that we're not always experiencing that beautiful nature that is our true self due to the interference of the mind. We're identifying the mind as the self, and therefore we are experiencing the nature of the mind as our own nature. And because the mind is composed of material energy, its nature is that it's always shifting, always changing, always moving. So it's up one day and down the next. Whereas the nature of the self is steady, because again, it's sat. It's not only eternal, but changeless. So why are we not experiencing that? It's because we're identifying with the mind. Then we need to understand the mind, right? So we're a spark trapped in a material body with a mind of matter, and that mind has been programmed with different ideas of what we think will make us happy or won't make us happy, and with different ideas of who we are. And actually, none of these ideas are truth. They're illusory. Our conception of the self is tied to the body, which is shifting and changing. We're eternal, but we're identifying with something that's temporary. And so that's our trap. It's a difficult trap. But if we can address the mind, if we could in some way reprogram that mind, then we could harmonize the mind with the nature of the self and begin to feel our own nature again. That makes sense? It's an interesting theory here, yes? And so the yogis are saying experiment with this theory. See where it goes. There are practices that we have. There's a very consistent and brilliant philosophy that goes to deeper and deeper and deeper levels to understand this. As you go deeper and deeper, it begins to sound more rational. It begins to seem more brilliant, the insights that are shared. And as one begins to perform the practices, then one's confidence in it grows still more. And gradually one begins to experience themselves transcending the effects of the constantly moving material energy and become free. So that's yoga. All right. So one bit of bad news before we move forward is I'm not done with the predicament of the soul. Not only are we a spark of spiritual energy trapped within a material body, engaging with the material mind, programmed with all kind of false ideas about who we are and what we need to be happy. But beyond that, we're moving through a world. We're moving through an environment that's also very tricky, also very illusory in a sense. And it has different laws that govern it that can make it, our existence in this realm, very difficult. And so we're going to begin to speak about that today and go into it in the next few days. The nature of the world that we're moving through and the laws that govern it according to the yogis. Does that sound interesting?
Yes.
Important?
Yes.
Worth knowing?
Yes.
Why didn't they teach us this in school? What were they doing? All the most important stuff they didn't address. So we're going to try to address that here. But before we do, Atma had a question for us, I think, from yesterday. Yes?
Yes, it's a series of questions based
A series, okay.
Yeah, based off of our conversations, because we were seeking to clarify the interaction of the manas and the buddhi.
Yes, the interaction of the impulsive mind
Yes.
and we could say the reflective mind.
Yes.
Yes.
So first question is, the manas does not discriminate between good and bad. It's just seeking happiness.
The manas considers certain things. In one sense, you could say all the manas does is consider good or bad, but it considers this is pleasure is good, and pain is bad. So it's kind of categorizing everything as either good or bad. Sometimes you'll hear in Eastern thought that there's no such thing as good or bad. Have any of you ever heard that kind of phrasing? And we should understand, it's not saying that there's no moral good or bad. That's not what's being said. What's being said is that our mind has been programmed to identify certain things as good in the sense that they will make us happy, and certain things as bad in the sense that they will not make us happy or they will cause us some kind of suffering. When it's not the good or bad in the object, the suffering or pain is really triggered by the programming in the mind. So I'll give you an example. I was giving a talk very much like this once in South America, Colombia. And I said, there are certain places in the world where people enjoy eating insects. And they said, yes, here. I said, okay, well, there you go. There they eat crickets, for instance. In other places, they eat other kind of bugs. And it's considered a nice type of food. And there are other places in the world where the very thought of that is considered absolutely repulsive. Now, is it that in other parts of the world, they eat potato chips? One part of the world, they walk into a store, they grab a bag of potato chips, and they eat it, and they feel good. Another part of the world, they walk into a store, they grab a bag of fried crickets, they eat it, and they feel good. Now, why is that? Is it that potato chip is good and cricket is bad? Is it that the potato chip by nature has happiness within it and the cricket doesn't? Or some people seem to think that there's happiness in the cricket. It's how our minds have been programmed to respond to these. In one part of the world, the mother, loving mother, who the child trusts, comes forward and says, here, try this. And they watch their mother eat it. And then they watch their siblings eat it and others eat it, and they see the happiness that's derived from it. And it's like programming going right into their computer, encoded. Cricket is food, cricket is good, cricket brings happiness. Whereas in another part of the world, if a bug lands on one's plate, the mother says, oh, this whole thing is like contaminated now, we need to get this out. It's no good anymore. And that's programming going right into the mind. So in one sense, all the manas does, it doesn't reflect, but it just identifies, you could say good or bad, or happiness and distress, like that. Okay. But it doesn't do the moral reasoning. That is done in the buddhi.
Okay, so then that brings us to the next question,
Okay.
is when does the buddhi kick in? When does it start? And we were thinking about this example of, you say you're thirsty and someone gives you something to drink and you automatically take a sip, not considering what's in the cup. Is the buddhi involved in that decision, or does the buddhi come in when you're handed the cup, and then you think and you ponder what is in this cup before I actually take a sip?
I don't know if I can quite apply to the circumstances that you're sharing, but let me address it. This is the formula as it's been handed down in the yogic texts, that they're the senses, and data is coming in through the senses. Information is sight, visual data, audio data, etc. is coming through the senses, and the first application within the mind to process that, to interface with that information, to interface with the senses, is the manas. So the instant reaction that the mind takes, the first reaction is that immediate attraction or repulsion, that immediate like or dislike. So if we're talking about the cup, the first thing is not actually the taste. That's the first thing. It's probably going to be the sight. I see the cup of water. If I'm in a state of thirst, then the manas is going to identify that as pleasurable. And in some other circumstance, it might recognize it immediately as not so pleasurable. And then the like, for instance, sometimes you have to do these things like you go into the hospital and they're taking some kind of I'm so bad with medical stuff, but like some things you have to drink a lot of water before they're going to examine your insides with some kind of X-ray technology or something like that. So you have to drink a lot of water, more than you would comfortably drink. So after you drank it a lot, and then someone says, "Here, you need to drink more," and then your eyes look at it and say, and the manas responds like, "I don't want any more. More is not pleasure. More is pain, or more is suffering." Then the buddhi says, "No. You're going to suffer more if you don't get this, X-ray done or whatever it is, and there's some disease within you. That would be far greater suffering. So you need to drink the water." And the buddhi convinces the manas that happiness lies in drinking the water, even though it's uncomfortable right now. And then you drink it. Does that address your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So then the buddhi is involved in every decision the manas makes?
Not
No.
necessarily. Sometimes we just respond based. We make an immediate decision that this is what I want. The buddhi may become submissive to the practically absolutely submissive, right? I mean, honestly, if you go into these yogic texts, you get yogis that are analyzing this all down to the finest details, and it can get philosophically very dense. So maybe I'm not comfortable saying that the buddhi, that sometimes it's not involved at all, but let's put it this way. Sometimes its influence is hardly felt at all. And so we're operating on the basis of the manas. And that's why the classic Upanishadic analogy, rather than using a computer, it's saying there's a chariot and it's being pulled by the horses. The horses are the senses. And the manas is the ropes. And the buddhi is the driver. So by using that analogy, you can imagine yourself, none of us have probably ever been on a chariot in our day and age, but you can imagine what it's like to be on a vehicle that there's a bunch of powerful horses that are capable of pulling it at a high speed. And if you don't have control of it, how wild that ride could get, how painful that ride could be. So it's essential that the driver have the strength to tighten the reins and control the horses. If not, the horses are going to pull you in all kinds of directions, and it can be a scary ride. And so here's the idea that they're emphasizing, is that the buddhi should be in control. The manas should be tightened by the strength of the buddhi. And therefore one can, and only then can one control the senses and be a real yogi. Yoga is going to require that self-discipline. And that self-discipline is developed through and sustained by intelligence, right? The buddhi. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. We have a question in the back there. For other people, they will want to hear.
We were having this discussion yesterday,
Okay.
and we were not sure about if manas has access to memory. Like, where does he get the information about, oh, this is pleasure, this is pain?
There has to be a connection between manas and the subconscious mind, because that's where its programming is. It's all connected to the emotional information that's stored in the. It's connected. Certainly, it's connected to the subconscious mind, but it doesn't operate with those files in the same way that the buddhi does. The Buddhi very consciously says, let me search out some information here. Let me pull up an old file. Let me examine it. Let me consider it. Let me pull up another one. Let me weigh them. Let me consider which one is more relevant in our current situation. Then it turns to the Buddha and says, I think you really ought to make this decision. Even though your familiarity is with some past experience and it's registered in you in a certain way, I want you to reconsider how you've considered what will bring you happiness. And so it has that very active relation.
Is it kind of like a top layer access that Manos has, or it's its own set of?
More than this, I don't feel comfortable saying.
Okay.
And I don't, honestly, it can be a fascinating topic. In certain minds, again, I don't consider myself a scholar, and I really don't even really consider myself a philosopher. I consider myself kind of like a communicator. I know people that have powerful philosophical minds that they effortlessly dig deeper and deeper and deeper into these dense layers of subtlety. And with the mind, it becomes very subtle. And the text on it, they can be difficult to decipher. And even then, you have different yogis saying different things when you get down to these very subtle levels, which sometimes appear to be contradictory. But when it comes to the basic idea, which will be practical and applicable for us, it's easy enough. It's easy enough for us to penetrate. This idea that there is part of our mind that makes decisions it has this impulsive reaction based on programming of what it's been programmed to believe will bring it happiness or not. And that there's another part of the mind that can interface with that and bring forward new information, more relevant information, in an attempt to reprogram it so that it'll make a healthier decision. That's essentially, I think, what we need to know.
Yeah, and it analyzes deeper. I guess it gets more information there, and then it's.
I'm not your man for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand. And
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions before we move on into this dark world that we live in? Yes, Andre Brew.
The third person in this conversation.
Okay, okay.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
So, my question is the Upanishadic analogy of the chariot. So, we know that Krishna is the doer and the soul desires. In the analogy, the soul is the passenger. So, is the soul's desire the one that leads the Buddhi as the driver to pull the reins? How does that work?
In the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is going to say that for any action, there are 5 elements involved. So it's not that there's just one doer. But at different places in the Bhagavad Gita, he'll emphasize one or the other. So sometimes he says, the self does nothing and the material energy carries out everything. And when he gets to the end of the Bhagavad, what he means by that, actually, why don't we hold that? Well, no, why don't we get into it right now? It'll get too complicated. If you were plugged into a virtual reality and sitting in a chair, you might be seeing you would be seeing another world, not the room that you're sitting in, but you would be, let's say, in an airplane, although you're sitting in a room on the ground. And from your chair, you could fly this plane north, south, east, west. You could change directions and do all kind of things in that plane. But the moving of everything that's happening in the virtual world, it's really due to the efforts of the designer of the virtual reality that things are changing in that world. You may say, I want to go left, and you start to go like this, but you're not even turning anything. But the designer of the virtual reality has set it up in such a way that everything changes in the in the virtual reality. So in that sense, the self does nothing. All we do is desire. And the material energy, under the direction of the devas, ultimately empowered by the Ishvara or Krishna, moves the world. And so like this, it's a subtle conversation. And he's telling it to Arjuna because Arjuna has to go and fight a battle, which generally people don't want to do. And he's feeling a sense of responsibility for it. And Krishna is saying to him, there are many factors involved in this. You don't want this, but you're called upon to do it. You're not held responsible. If these other men wouldn't have acted in such a way, you wouldn't have had to do this. So it wasn't your choice, but it is your duty. And so like this, when we discuss agency, which is essentially what this question is, who's the doer in all of this? That's a question that philosophers, it's a big question in philosophy. And so in this case, what the self does, what is the power of the self? Do I have the power to lift this hand? I can say I do, but actually at any moment I could lose it. So it's really not my power. It's just something that's kind of being granted to me temporarily. I'm desiring it, and the desire is being carried out by other forces. That's how the yogis see it. Does that address your question?
It's more like about what can we do? How should we focus ourselves to? Yeah, I'm not sure if I can articulate it well enough. Yeah.
In other words, what is our agency? Because if we don't understand what our agency is, how do we know where to focus?
Yes.
And in one sense, we can say our agency is our desire. And so in one sense, our whole mission as we move through this world is to purify the desire, to move from selfishness to selflessness. If we simply do that, you could say we've achieved the goal. We've moved from selfishness to divine love, which is entirely selfless. We can focus on our desire and see that the pure desire, which is my nature, is being just like a prism will warp light. It goes in, or let's say just a colored lens. If you're wearing glasses that are, let's say they're pink colored, then everything that goes through appears to be pink, although it's not. And so similarly, our desire inside what we have is divine love, but as it passes through a warped mind, it manifests as lust. It manifests as in so many other ways, as anger, as all the ups and downs are just a manifestation of the warped love that we have. And so if I can work on that lens, which is the mind, then I can simply manifest that true nature, which is myself. Therefore, yoga always addresses the mind. Any facet of yoga, whether it's asana, pranayama, whether it's any kind of ritual, mantra, all the different social etiquettes that are part of yoga, whatever practice it is, philosophical point that's related to yoga, we can always know that its purpose is in relation to the mind. Why do we do asana? Well, because it affects the body. Yes, but the yogi is concerned with how the body affects the mind. So in the end, it always goes back to the mind. And so whatever yoga one's practicing is, it has to do with addressing the obstacle of the mind. And for the bhakti yogi, it's the understanding that the love that is my nature is becoming warped through my mind. I'm suffering because of it, and others are suffering because of it. So let me see if I can reprogram that mind so that the divine love that's in me as it comes through the mind isn't warped in some way, but it comes out as it truly is. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. Okay, and we have another question from Katie, right? Katie, yeah. Yeah. We do Q&A sessions every night, but we're
Yeah,
happy to do them in the morning as well.
Sorry, I
No,
don't
no,
want
it's
to
fine.
stop you moving
I'm
on.
encouraging good
Ho-
questions.
Hopefully, it's a quick one. We were talking last night, a small group of us, and wondered where, I think this is what we were wondering, is where intuition, sort of fits in this matrix.
Yeah. First of all, I really love it that people are having all these conversations outside the class. This is exactly, how we're meant to spend our time, discussing these important things. And I suppose what we call intuition, people may be speaking about different things when we say it, because really it just means, I suppose we could look up the dictionary definition for intuition. Maybe someone could pull it up right now. But as I understand it, it means like something that's deeply embedded in me that I kind of know without reasoning. Is that what you would call intuition?
Or maybe it's, sort of a sense that isn't coming from the mind, but that it's
It's coming from a deeper place.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have let's take a look. Intuition. The ability to know something by using your feelings rather than considering the facts. Okay, so in other words, some truth that we have some conviction in that doesn't pass through a phase of reasoning or a filter of reasoning. We feel that it's something underneath it. So whether that's a product of the mind or whether that's something coming from the actual self is a challenging thing to determine on our own, right? The mind is so tricky. The mind is an absolutely fascinating thing. I'll share something with you. There was an experiment that was done. I believe it was done in London, like back in the 1930s or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but something like that. And what they did was they created a pair of glasses that when you look through them, it turns everything upside down. And they kind of put these glasses, they're probably something like goggles, because you're just seeing through them and nothing else. And they had a person wear them for days. And the person was reporting what their experience was like. And the first day was like, obviously like a very difficult, they had difficulty navigating their way through the day. Everything was upside down. It was just really hard to do anything. And by the second day, they were beginning to adapt to the upside down world. If you want to pour a glass of water, you got to do it. But they began to learn how to work that way. But after three days or so, something very surprising happened. And that is that the mind just turned everything right side up. It just adjusted everything, So this mind is a really clever thing. And to be able to determine whether a particular desire in me is a product of the self or a product of the mind, it could be something that's beyond our ability to really, we will become sometimes people say, trust your gut. You've heard that kind of thing?
That's what we were sort of...
Yeah, and so maybe that works for us sometimes, but like two people, their gut is telling them two different things. Is one of them right and one of them wrong? And a lot of times people trust their gut and do a lot of really ridiculous and unfortunate things. Every war is based on two people two nations that right down to their gut are convinced that what they're doing is noble and right, and commonly what they believe is divine, like divine will. So is our gut, whatever that exactly means, trustworthy? So what yogis do is we were speaking about this last night in the Q&A. There is kind of a model that they use to examine their decision making, and they call this, it's like a three-part kind of, I suppose you could say, filter that they put it through, and that's Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. I won't go into it for too long right now, but in other words, there's one's Guru, there's the Sadhus, those great souls who have great qualities and who have demonstrated great behavior and they're not only are they living today, but the histories of their lives are there in these ancient texts. And then Shastra itself, the dictate of the sacred texts, which are in the yoga tradition. The faith is that it's not ordinary knowledge. It's apaurushaya. It's not created by any human being. It's an eternal manual vibrating through the universe that one can connect in. So then one could examine their desires and say, are they harmonious with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? And if they are, well then perhaps it's coming from the true self. And if it appears not to be, then perhaps it's something generated in the mind. But the mind again is so tricky that we might misinterpret Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra as well. Because people, again, who was it? William Blake, I think, that said, both of us read the Bible day and night, but where you read white, I read, no, what is it? But where you read black, I read white. So two people can look at the same text and walk away with very different ideas too. So nothing's so easy in this world to determine. In one sense, it's simple. In another sense, it's very complicated. But the more simple we become, meaning that's why earlier I had said you can take all the qualities of the yogi and you can sum them up kind of in two: kindness and simplicity. And simplicity means that as we begin to get control of the mind, we realize my happiness is something within. I don't need to complicate my world. It's not necessary that I have the latest model of this, and it's not necessary that I, attain this and I get this recognition, and all these things are not so necessary. I can simplify my life. From that platform, it begins to become easier to hear the messages that are being told to us. Otherwise, we can tend to rationalize to fulfill our complicated desires. All right? Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what that is. Yes, Sanatana. Let's bring you the microphone.
But how can any thought, because this has also eluded me for long time. I've tried to put my mind to it, like what and what not. But how can a thought not come from the mind, be it intuition? It could be something it could be a dream where we do not know the origin of the dream. We just are processing the dream, maybe enjoying it, maybe dreading it, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still in the mind. So how could it has to come from the mind only, no?
Well, but the question is it generated in the mind or is it coming through the mind? In other words, just like if you and I never saw each other, but we only communicated through our computers, then when you receive a message from me, you don't know if it's actually coming from me, or it might be something that's sent through my computer, or might have been kind of edited through my computer. Just like nowadays, people take you and I may be communicating by WhatsApp, and I may, rather than be typing in my message, I may be speaking it. And when I speak it in, it has that, what do you call it? Auto corrector, or it's dictating. It's taking a dictation. But sometimes when you do that, you get all kind of crazy things. Like Krishna devotees know when you say Hare Krishna, it commonly comes out as hate Krishna. and so I'm saying something that's coming through this computer. You're receiving it on the other end. You're not sure whether it's coming from me or if it's the autocorrect that's the messages. How pure that message is, you're not sure. And so similarly, whether our thought is something that's actually from the self that's coming up and being expressed, or if it's been very warped or changed by the mind, both are very possible. Yes?
But the Shastras say either the good karmas or the bad karmas. It is either good or bad. It's all from it has to be part of the material world. So it should also
You
originate
think
from.
all thought is part of the material world?
Yes.
Okay, so you see there are different schools of Vedanta, right? And so from what I understand in Advaita Vedanta, It's the idea is that Brahman is aware, Brahman is conscious, and then some sort of illusion is placed on top of that. And from that comes emotion and all these thoughts and so on. And in Advaita Vedanta, in Bhakti Vedanta, the idea is that the self has all the senses, has its own thinking capacity that are there, and then but what we're operating through an artificial medium, the body and the mind. So the self thinks, the self feels, the self has emotions, the self has all these different things, and that let me. Well, we only have 10 minutes left,
I hate.
but let me prepare ourselves for tomorrow's class by bringing up the topic and see if this relates to what you're saying, because this becomes real important. The 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita opens up with a metaphor. And the metaphor is of a tree that's upside down. It says there's a banyan tree, and the roots are going up, and the branches are going down. Okay, well, that sounds like an unusual tree, right? But where do we see such a tree? How do we receive a vision of an upside down tree? I'm sorry, if there's a body of water, if there's a reflection, right? In a reflection, if we're standing on one side of a pond and the tree is on the other side, then the reflection of the tree appears to be upside down. And so this is the way where Krishna is telling Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that this analogy of the upside down banyan tree is being applied to the world that we live in, the universe that we're in. And it's giving us an indication that this world is unreal in a particular sense, because different philosophers will speak of this world as being unreal, but they'll present that idea in different ways. And the Bhagavad Gita is presenting the idea that in a sense this world is unreal, in a sense it's real. And what's going to help us understand that is the analogy of a reflection. Is a reflection real or unreal? Let me ask you, what do you think? Is a reflection real? Is it? Is a dream real? Any no's out there? No. Okay, so I think we said this earlier. If a child has a nightmare and then they wake up, maybe even the parents wake up the child because they can see that it's suffering in that nightmare. Well, the nightmare sure seems real to the child, but what do the parents say? It was only a dream. It's not real. So something was causing the child to feel that, and at the same time, poof, it's gone. You can't touch it. So is it real or unreal? In a sense, it's real in one sense. It's unreal in another sense. It's just how we categorize it depends on the particular angle that we're looking at it from, whether it's real or unreal. If you look in a mirror, the image that you see, is it real or is it unreal? In one sense, it's real, right? There's a pane of glass there, a surface. There's particles of light. I guess that would be the right way to say it, right? Particles of light that are situated on the surface of that glass, or we could say that are bouncing off the surface of that glass and entering into our eyes. So something's there. There's something real is there. But if I look at that image and I think it's me, it's not me. It looks like me, but it's not me. If I move, it moves, but it's not me. So if I look at it and think that that's me, then I'm an illusion. Is a mirage real? A mirage, there's something real going on. From what I understand, it has to do with like heat. And heat kind of creates a warping of something. And when we see it, that warping looks like it's water that's moving. So there's something real going on. There's real heat and what something is being... There's a refraction of light going on. So if we see it, we're seeing something real. But if we think that it's water, then we're an illusion. And one would have to say it's not real. It's not real water, at least. You understand? So when the Bhagavad Gita is speaking about this world being unreal, It's speaking about, it's not saying that it doesn't exist. Some philosophers are saying this does not exist. You and I, being individuals, is also non-existent. It's all just some kind of imposition. In truth, none of this is here. I find that a very difficult position to defend. And eventually they'll come and say, what is the word? There's a word that means like beyond the mind, like it can't be described, beyond words. It's like, Shankar uses this term, but I'm forgetting it now. It's slipping my mind. I'll come back with it tomorrow. No, not avidya. Literally, it means like it can't be expressed in words. They're saying that the material world that we're living in, the nature of its reality or illusion, not avyakt either. Sorry. No problem. But they're saying that it can't be expressed in words, so don't even try, in a sense. Whereas the Bhakti Vedantins, they're saying, no, we can understand it. It's both real and unreal. Ultimately, it's real. Just like we could say, ultimately, a mirror is real. But how we relate to it and how we relate to the images that it presents can be an experience of illusion. Okay. And this goes to Sanatanji, what you were bringing up now. I just want to bring this up with the last 5 minutes because it relates to what you're saying. Does the self have its own thoughts, its own emotions, or are thoughts and emotions something that only happens in the material realm on the level of the mind? And what the yogis are presenting is, if this world is a reflection, if I'm looking, let's say I'm standing on a sidewalk in a city, and I'm looking, let's say it's really not into a glass window of a shop, but I'm really looking at the glass. I'm really looking at the surface of the glass. And on the surface of the glass, I see the reflection of myself. Okay. And I can also look into that glass, and I can see on the surface of the glass, next to me and what would appear to be behind me, is an automobile. Okay. I'm not looking at the automobile. I'm looking at the glass. But what do I know for sure? That there's an automobile behind me. How do I know it? I'm not looking that way. I'm looking at the glass. I'm looking in the exact opposite direction, but I know that if there's a reflection of an automobile on the glass, there must be an original automobile that's being reflected. We know this for sure. And so similarly, the yogis are saying, if the Bhagavad Gita is telling us that this world is a reflection, it's an upside down banyan tree, then there must be a real banyan tree that's being reflected. Okay? If this world is a reflection, there must be another world that is, in a sense, more real. Okay? And what we also find with reflections is that they appear exactly like what's being reflected. They appear, right? If I look in a mirror, it looks exactly like me, does it not? Except for one thing. It's the exact opposite. It's upside down or it's backwards, right? This is the nature of a reflection. So if this world is a reflection, then it means that there must be another real world, a world that is more real. Like, in other words, in the reflection, the image is real in one sense, but what's being reflected, in other words, if I see a reflection of a car in the glass, that image on the glass is real in one sense. It's light on glass. It's real in that sense. It's illusory if I think it's a car. It's not actually a car. But I also know that there must be a real car that's being reflected. And I also know that that real car is more real. It has a deeper sense of reality. It's or we could even say it's the original, right? It's the original that's being reflected. So then again, if this world is okay, and then another thing about reflections, they appear exactly like the thing, but they're the opposite. So if this world is a reflection. It means there must be another real world, more real world. That real world must look a lot like this real world, but something about it is totally the opposite. And so the yogis are, Bhagavad Gita is saying, there's a realm beyond this one. This world is, in a sense, it's like a virtual world. Anything that's going on in a virtual reality is based on reality. It's only because it exists in reality first that it can be recreated in the virtual world. And so they're saying Bhagavad Gita is using reflection, but the modern yogi would say virtual reality, that this world is a virtual reality, that everything in it has its truer form beyond this realm. But there's something in that realm that is the exact opposite of the realm that we're operating in right now. And tomorrow we're going to talk about that. And it'll relate to what you're saying, that there's illusory thought, there's artificial thought, virtual thought, which is what we call the mind, in which the Vedantins are recognizing as not being sat, not being truth. But then there's a realm of thought that is truth, that's being reflected as untruth in this world. But we don't have time to I can see her, but we're out of time. And I need to stop on time. Thank you. Anirvachaniya can't be described in words. We'll get into that tomorrow too. Thank you all so very much. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. And please stick around for the wonderful Kirtan. Hari Kirtan you'll be leading? No? Someone wonderful will be leading. I'm sorry? Anna. Oh, I've heard wonderful things about Anna's Kirtans, so please stick around for that. And if you would like to join the WhatsApp group to receive more information and receive all the classes and the previous classes and the future classes, please see the lovely Gabriella here. She'll be right outside the door, and she'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much. Oh, you're so kind to me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hari Om Tat Sat.